Hello and welcome to Digital Signage Explored. My name is Tim.
My name is Joe.
And thank you very much for joining us again on this episode where we're going to be interviewing ChatGPT for the second time. The first time was a brief 5-minute interview that I did and actually had a really good response and feedback. So I thought, why not go and revisit it now that a bit of time has landed? So we have collated some questions for ChatGPT. There is a bit of risk that this won't work exactly as planned. I just had to go and buy a subscription for ChatGPT 2 minutes ago because I realized I was nearly out of credits, but we've crossed that bridge. We should all be good to go. Joe, have you got any questions, thoughts? Are you ready to go?
I think I'm ready, to be honest.
Cool.
How long ago was it that you actually did the other video?
It's probably like 6 months ago now.
Yeah.
So technology might have changed. Maybe GPT is better. I've done some tests. We've got some interesting questions that I think it'd be interesting to see if GPT has some thoughts on this or whether it's too niche.
What I was going to say is that I think that GPT's chat functionality has gotten better in such it's advancing so quickly. So I'm interested to see the difference from the answers you get now compared to what you got then. I know you're asking some different questions, but let's see what it comes out with.
Well, our intention is that you and I are experts in the field.
Yep.
And now we're going head to head with GPT to see if we can flummox it.
Yeah.
And or to see if we can add any value or potentially learn something. And I think that's the interesting thing. If you in the chat have any questions you'd like to ask, obviously you can go and ask GPT yourself. But for a bit of fun and games, do feel free to add in any questions or comments or things that you want to add. And we'll ask GPT those same things and just have a bit of a round table around it. I think it's going to be pretty accurate. I think it's going to be pretty insightful, but I do think it's going to be pretty recycled.
Yeah.
Typically, from my understanding, is predominantly going to be pulling from blog posts, articles, things that other people have written.
Yeah.
And you almost end up in this like cyclical situation of everyone writes the same thing, GPT analyzes it, absorbs it, and then just spits it out. Everybody's thoughts clumped into one conversation.
Yeah. You notice that the more you use AI, like I use it quite a lot with a lot of the writing work I'm doing, and you notice the patterns in the actual chatbot itself after time. Like even going from one AI to another, you get like, oh, it uses this word a lot, but it just rearranges where that word goes.
Yeah.
Unless you specifically say don't use that word, it's going to spit out like a generalized sort of encapsulation of everything that it has consumed.
Yeah, 100%. You're just looking a little quiet on the mic.
Right, let me just make sure.
Testing microphones as we go through. So we're going to start off by bringing on GPT onto the show. So let's wait a minute. Hello there. Welcome, ChatGPT, to the show. You're live on Digital Signage Explored. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Let's dive into the world of digital signage. What would you like to discuss first?
First of all, do you consider yourself an expert on digital signage? Is this something that you spend a lot of time investigating and analyzing?
I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I've definitely explored digital signage a lot and can provide helpful information and insights.
Okay.
Let me know what you're curious about.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We've got some questions lined up for you. You're currently live, so, no rude language or anything like that. We're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube. We'd like you to answer some of those questions, if that's okay.
Absolutely. I'm ready to answer your questions. Let's dive right in.
Okay.
What's the first question?
Okay, perfect. So the first one that we wanted to ask is, what would you ask when looking at digital signage for the first time? What questions would you approach with as a potential customer using digital signage?
Great question. As a potential customer, I'd start by asking about the goals for using digital signage. Are you looking to enhance customer experience, boost sales, or improve internal communication? Next, I'd consider the content strategy. What type of content do you want to display, and how often will it be updated? Finally, I'd ask about the technical aspects. What hardware and software options are available, and how easy is it to manage? These questions can help guide the decision-making process.
Okay, pretty concise. I think that's a pretty good summary. One thing that I would mention on there as well that maybe hasn't been covered is structurally where screens are going to be, where your audience is, how they're going to be watching things. That is something that I would consider. Would you agree with that, GPT?
Absolutely. The location and placement of screens are crucial. It's important to consider where your audience will be and how they'll interact with the content. Ensuring screens are placed where they're easily visible and accessible can make a big difference in effectiveness. Thanks for highlighting that point.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. I'll come back to you in just a moment. Hold on a second. Okay, so interesting. I mean, some of those are, luckily it writes it down for me so I don't have to remember everything she said. But Any arguments against that?
No, not at all. I think another thing that I maybe would have mentioned is that what level of control are you wanting people to have? Like, who's going to be in charge of that digital signage? Because I guess you went straight in with hardware. Like, where does it sit? And I think that's a fine thing to start with. But as well as that, you got to think of the level of knowledge that these people who might be controlling this digital signage or managing it might have, right? Because you've got consumer grade products and you've got like the more higher end, more complicated stuff. Like, you know, talk about your Googles, for example. I wouldn't personally want to put someone who's not quite well versed in the world of digital signage in the way of something like an enterprise device like the Chromebox, because you're managing it in a much more higher level, right? It's a more complicated way of managing things. Not to say that it's not worth doing, but I think that to throw someone who's new to digital signage, go, oh yeah, Chrome Management Console, and we're going to go down here and there, I think that could be overwhelming maybe.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that as a response is pretty good as a very like a holistic, hey, I'm looking at digital signage. But I think there's two things that needs to be considered is what department are you in within the company?
Yeah.
If you've been requested to do this and you're in the IT or sysadmin, or you're looking at the structure from data, all of those pieces, your questions and angles are going to be incredibly different than if you're in marketing and you've been tasked to do this. I'm going to be thinking about content, like what am I going to distribute? What's the benefit? What's the ROI? What's all these questions? So, but the honest answer is that all of them need to be looked at.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's something like a 25 things you need to consider before doing digital signage. Like if you actually broke it down, because typically you do one which is focused on this angle or that angle.
Yeah.
But if you really broke it down, you could make quite a insightful document from inception to the running with it 2 years later.
Yeah, it was a bit like the doc you did recently in your stream where you were going through, channeling through each of the different departments.
And that's very specifically, I would say that's a marketing approach, because we're focused on the content, whereas, you know, the security team is going to be like, how many Ethernet ports are we going to be running, and what size of the data is going to be running through this, and all that kind of stuff that candidly is very dry, but needs to be done as well. So there's a different angle at that we can maybe take one day.
Yeah, and I think it boils down to, like, the most important question is like, why? What are you trying to achieve? That's question one, right? You get into any of the nitty gritty.
Absolutely. Let's get GPT back in the room here real quick and go into the second question. Do you want to line up the second question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I'll just go in the order we've got here.
Yeah.
So, GPT, what impacts decision making when it comes to hardware?
For digital signage
For digital signage, of course. Did you catch me?
Don't know.
No problem. Happy to help. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to discuss, or if you have more questions.
Let's try that again.
Sure, we can go over it again. Let me know what you'd like to revisit or clarify.
Okay, GPT, what impacts decision making in digital signage when it comes to hardware?
When it comes to hardware for digital signage, several factors impact decision making. First, the display quality and type are crucial, whether you're opting for LCD, LED, or other technologies. Durability and brightness are also key, especially for outdoor displays. Next, compatibility with content management systems is important. You want hardware that's easy to integrate and manage. Finally, consider the installation and maintenance requirements, ensuring the hardware meets your operational needs.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. All right, again, concise. What are your thoughts?
I think definitely a good point about thinking about outdoor screens versus indoor screens with obviously like high bright displays and stuff like that, because that's something that's very easy to overlook. And we've had high bright screens upstairs for testing, for example, and they are hard to look when you're inside and you walk past a high bright screen. You're kind of like, whoa, I could catch a tan in front of that.
I haven't noticed. I don't venture upstairs enough, I guess.
It's because we've put the brightness all the way down.
Right.
All of us were like wearing sunglasses up in the office.
Well, if you get like a tan from it, I guess there's no UVB in there. That's a shame.
Yeah.
I guess we kind of stumbled at it by not asking specifically around the hardware, because when we're talking about hardware, there's two pieces potentially. You've got the screen and then you've got a device, unless it's system on chip. But I do think that one of the interesting points that she makes is finding the right CMS, finding the right LED or LCD or whatever that ends up being, it's actually about making sure that you've found two products that work well together.
Yeah.
And it's not that one size fits all, or there's the perfect CMS or the perfect player or the perfect system on chip screen. It's saying, I need this. Does this work with that? Is that compatible? And finding the most compatible solution across all three of those kind of main focuses. And then, things like brightness, but then also like temperature control, functionality. I know Philips has a tool, Wave, I think it's called, where you can go, all right, yes, this screen has USBs, but turn all the USBs off. Like, I don't want someone to accidentally have a USB drive become the number one focus. So there's a lot to take in there, but I do think it's a nice kind of rounded introduction.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Anything in chat or comments just before we carry on too far? I want to make sure we're not ignoring the audience.
Let me just jump back over here. No, we got nothing at the moment.
Okay. Well, if you are watching, you've got any questions, do drop them in. We will ask ChatGPT, and we will be your conduit to the AI future. Going on to the next question, then. There we go. So, ChatGPT, you're on Digital Signage Explored. Welcome. What are the top trends in new innovation for digital signage, would you say?
Thank you. Some top trends in digital signage include the use of AI and machine learning for personalized content, interactive displays that engage customers, and the integration of touchless technology for safety and convenience. There's also a growing focus on data analytics to measure engagement and effectiveness. Additionally, sustainability is becoming important with more energy-efficient hardware options.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. ChatGPT, whilst I have you on here, does it feel odd to mention yourself as part of that new technology that is potentially turning up in digital signage?
It's definitely interesting to think about it. AI and digital signage together can create some exciting possibilities. My role could be to help manage content, provide insights, or even interact with customers. It's always fun to be part of innovative technology.
That is, and I want to carry on that line of questioning for you, ChatGPT, because we work with a company on occasion called SodaClick. I know that they've been launching a really interesting AI model for drive-thrus with ordering in kiosks. What other examples of digital signage with AI and machine learning do you think would be of value?
That sounds like an exciting project. AI and machine learning can add value in digital signage through personalized content recommendations based on customer preferences or behaviors, real-time analytics to adjust content dynamically, and enhancing customer engagement through interactive features like voice recognition or gesture control. These applications can help create more engaging and efficient customer experiences.
Interesting. We'll leave ChatGPT there for a minute, but that is really interesting. And I've got some questions that actually line up for this that we'll ask them later around sustainability and some of those other things. But thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the part about customer interaction I found interesting because from a from a support perspective, I see the benefit, but I guess what would be how would that even work from an actual signage perspective?
It's a good question. I think a year ago, or whenever AI and machine learning came in and we were sitting there going, oh my goodness, what's about to happen?
Yeah.
It was kind of end of days. But from what we've seen, a lot more of it I find to be beneficial behind the scenes. I can see there being usefulness of AI in digital signage, but it's predominantly on the decision making and it's on the kind of, to be honest with you, like Canva's a really good example where you go, generate me this thing in AI. I don't have this image. It doesn't exist. How do I get that to be built? And then likewise, being able to manage and manipulate large amounts of data.
Yeah.
Like with our proof of play integration with like a Meld, for example, you go, okay, well, here's 60,000 individual tracking metrics from people that looked at our screen. What does it actually mean? Like, what is the data in there we want to pull out and go, this piece of content isn't working? And then also, could you use AI to go, okay, here's one image. It's a guy wearing a pair of Nike shoes.
Yeah.
Then you go, I need 25 versions of this with slight tweaks. Like he's smiling, he's frowning, he's wearing a bag, he's not wearing a bag, he's jumping up in the air, he's standing still. Make me those 25 versions. And then we publish that. And then we use AI in the back end to take the information back and say which one had the highest engagement.
Yeah.
So I think there's loads of stuff, especially from advertisement and A/B testing, that AI could really kind of cut its teeth in.
Definitely. And I think the data is a big thing here. I mean, you obviously mentioned it there, but there's so much more we can do with data now because of AI that we couldn't do once upon a time with digital signage, right? Well, we sort of had all this data, but we didn't know what do we do with this. Like, sure, we know how many plays that an asset has had, but what happens now? And I think that AI is allowing us to kind of take that and, like you say, make decisions with it and impact our digital signage from a content perspective, from a scheduling perspective.
Yeah, 100%. No, really, really fascinating. Especially odd to interview the machine itself that you're asking.
Yeah.
It becomes like the snake eating its own head kind of situation.
Yeah.
So where are we question-wise? I'm going to jump ahead to the sustainability one. Do you want to ask that one, the sustainability? Interesting topic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, here we go. Bring it on.
Hey, GPT. So sustainability is an interesting topic right now in digital signage. Can digital signage be considered sustainable?
Definitely. Digital signage can be sustainable in several ways. Using energy efficient displays, like LED screens, reduces power consumption. You can also use renewable energy sources to power signage systems. Additionally, digital signage can reduce paper waste from traditional signage. And when screens are no longer in use, they can be recycled or repurposed, minimizing electronic waste.
Great.
Okay. Interesting. So do you have any statistics to back that up?
I don't have specific statistics on hand, but sustainability in digital signage is a growing trend. Many companies are increasingly focused on energy-efficient hardware and environmentally friendly practices. You might find studies or reports from industry organizations that provide more detailed statistics.
Yeah, interesting. Sustainability.
Yeah.
Have you done much research on it? I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've done a little bit, but not a huge...
No, I haven't. But to be honest, a project jumps to mind that I know that a customer that we've worked with, they actually were using their digital signage to display notices as if they were paper form. So what they typically had was a board that they were displaying actual pieces of paper with, but then they turned it into a digital signage display.
Yeah.
But they then replicated that same output by having the actual PDFs appear as images individually on the screen, which I find really interesting. Like that was one of the first projects I came across in digital signage when I started working here, and I found that really fascinating. And at the time, hadn't really thought about, this is actually going to be a replacement for that.
I think that's, it is I do find it fascinating because some of it depends on scale.
Yeah.
Like totally candidly, I think if you're a one shop location that replaces a poster once every 6 months, there's just absolutely no way you can say that it's more efficient, more sustainable to replace it with a screen.
Yeah.
Because you've got the manufacturing of the screen, you've got the shipping, you've got all this stuff to consider. It's when you start talking about volume changes, like how much does it cost if you've got 25 chains and you're updating menus twice a week, and suddenly you have to have vehicles driving out to replace those. You've got to get the printing works to get them there. You've got the ink. You've got just, in essence, the travel of replacing that over a large distance. That's when you can actually start arguing and saying, it's more cost effective, it's more sustainable to do this via the digital imprint. And I will say I cheated a little bit on this one because I did a bit of research on this before. One of the things that I learned about a little while ago is that due to Bitcoin mining and NFTs and all this kind of stuff, is the search for a more energy efficient way of having of creating energy is looking at nuclear power plants,
right?
Because they are, they obviously make the cleanest energy if done right. But what I did find really interesting about this kind of small nuclear reactors is loads of these NFT companies are looking at buying them for themselves.
Right.
So they become completely self-sustaining.
Yeah.
They build their own energy source, which is what powers their mining machines and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a really odd future of, you've got the natural energies like your wind farms and your water turbines and stuff, but these kind of small nuclear sites, really far away from digital signage at this point, but it does eventually affect it when you start talking about sustainability for energy.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting, actually.
And you'll see, actually, because you're going over to ISE this year, there's a really interesting product that it's been around for a while. but it's almost like an e-reader, like a Kindle, but for digital signage.
Right.
I don't think it's had quite the uptake globally. I think that might be a cost-related issue. I'm not 100% sure what's stopping it, but from an energy efficiency perspective, then you're talking about it's a percentage of what digital screen would do, because it's just, I think it's magnetically pulling the pixels to display. It's it's a very clever technology.
Interesting.
Just like piece of paper, just because you're talking about the digital boards.
Wow.
Cool. Let's move on. Where are we? Oh yeah, I wanted to ask this question. Hey GPT, so when we're talking about digital signage, augmented reality is something that I find quite interesting. And as a topic, do you see that there's any future between the marriage of AR and digital signage out in the wild?
Absolutely. Augmented reality and digital signage can create immersive and interactive experiences. Imagine customers using their smartphones or AR glasses to interact with signage displays, getting additional product information, or even trying out virtual try-ons. This combination can enhance customer engagement, provide valuable information, and make experiences more memorable.
Okay, interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, that's really cool, actually. I didn't even consider the fact that having the ability to, she said try-ons, and immediately my head went to a retail space.
Yeah.
You go into a clothes store, they probably wouldn't do away with changing rooms, but you're there with this ability to stand in front of a screen, a mirror, and you can virtually try on things in the store. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Have you seen the Meta Ray-Ban glasses?
No.
So Meta have just come out with a pair of glasses. Really do just look like a pair of glasses at this point. They're not, clunky, big, bulky. They look like sunglasses.
Yeah.
But they have cameras on either side and speakers that go into your ears.
Right.
So it's not AR. I think it's an iterative step. It allows you to, it reviews what you're viewing through the world. It allows you to record by voice and to say, record this moment, and you can keep going, which obviously, as a glasses wearer yourself, is, seamless. You wouldn't even notice. You'd just say record. Yeah. But on top of that, it can also see what you're seeing and give you information. So as an example, you could be going down a museum and look at a piece and go, what is that? And it'll be able to browse the internet, bring back that information and tell you in your ear.
Yeah.
And I think that's iterative from what Google Glass tried to do.
I was going to say, Google Glass was once a thing. I don't even, and that disappeared, right?
Way too early. They just didn't, the timing was off. The product makes sense, but the timing was off. So the next step on that is to have something visibly turn up in your eyes. And that I've already seen working, where there's a bunch of college kids that basically made a tiny, tiny little projector that projected onto the back of the lens words, just text. But it means that when I was talking to you, and let's say we're talking two different languages, the translation was turning up in the corner of kind of Terminator style. Just So imagine in the future when you can walk down a high street or you walk into a shopping mall and you see these screens and it registers, oh, it's this screen, and almost like a QR code pattern. The camera goes, right, I'm going to project to you the latest offer. I'm going to have that pop out slightly. I'm going to have that be more immersive in the scene. Like you've got a digital signage screen on one side of the wall and a blank space where your digital projection is going to appear. Yeah. So the right hand side, it's like, let's just say, go with the same thing. Try these new Nike shoes, right? But your glasses knows who you are. Yeah. So it knows you, Joe. So it's going to project a character that looks similar to you next to those screens through your glasses. That is a character like you wearing those shoes.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that as well is I guess that with something like that, if it even had the power, and I assume it would, to tailor like your profile and your interests. So if I'm walking through a store like that or a shopping mall and I'm not someone who's interested in shoes, it won't throw that in front of me.
Or you could just swipe it.
Yeah, or you swipe
not for
it.
Me.
Yeah, no,
change
not for
the
me.
advert. It's very Minority Report like that. Have you ever seen Minority Report?
I don't think I have. No.
Okay, well, you just some homework. You got to go watch Minority Report. But it's he walks through this world where the advertisement is 100%. It's not augmented in that world. It's kind of like sky projection.
Yeah.
It's very kind of like. It's based on you. It welcomes you, the individual, every time you walk in. It's like, hey, Joe, how you doing? Fancy pair of Nikes, that kind of thing. And that I could see being the world that goes into, pairing physical digital signage with more like a floating augmented reality.
Yeah.
And whether or not people will enjoy that experience, that's a different question. Because there definitely be a world where people go, I am not for this. And they just take the glasses off. Fair enough. But then there'd be added benefits to that for sure. Like, I'm walking into my Sainsbury's and I go, where are the chickpeas? And it just goes, "Brr," here.
Yeah.
And you just walk in.
Paints you a path to walk down.
Like the world's your oyster at that point, right?
Yeah.
The options are pretty crazy at that point. Any other thoughts on AR?
Yeah, it's a weird, like AI and AR, it's all just this concept that is so, it's almost like the sky's your ceiling, isn't it? It's kind of like, if you can think it, it can be a thing. But now it's at a point where you don't even have to think it and it can still be a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what froze my mind on these topics.
Yeah, it's so fast paced, off topic. But have you ever seen the AI video that came out when it first launched, which was Will Smith eating pasta?
I feel like I do, but explain it to me.
It's one of the first AI generated videos. We're talking like 6 months ago, maybe a bit more, 10 months ago. But it was Will Smith tries to eat spaghetti, and it's just his hands turn into the spaghetti, then the spaghetti's like half of his face, and then his mouth kind of wraps around the whole bit of spaghetti, and AI just couldn't figure out how hands work, B, how spaghetti works, and C, it struggled with eating.
Yeah.
So it was like the perfect combination of just like, it just wasn't working. And now there's posts where people have to be like, this is AI. And you go, I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
It's like the only thing that may give it away is it's almost too polished. Like it almost looks like Photoshop. It's just interesting to see what a 6-month period will do.
Yeah.
Will Smith eating pasta might be like the most memeable AI thing that will never be seen again.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing.
So we've got a couple more questions on here. Do you want to do the audience metrics one there?
Yeah, let's go for that. Oh, wait, which one is it there? GBT. How does digital signage utilize audience metrics to deliver better content, and what is the major focus?
Digital signage can utilize audience metrics by collecting data on viewer demographics, engagement levels, and content interaction. With this information, content can be tailored to better suit the audience, ensuring relevance and engagement. The major focus is often on understanding viewer behavior to deliver dynamic and engaging content.
Okay. I mean, fair enough. I think we have had some experience with this and what that does. I mean, any thoughts on that?
It's right in the wheelhouse of the Meld CXs of the world, right? It's just an incredible way to understand your audience from the moment they even step foot into a store, and you can, and then you're tailoring that content or you're tailoring that experience for the whole store for that particular customer, which I think for digital signage is a great tool to have, because especially when we're in a world where, and I don't know if you're like this, but I'm someone who's quite heavy on muting my notifications on my phone, for example.
No, I don't do that ever.
Only because like the world just gets noisy for me, and sometimes I need to shut off noise. And that's why I said earlier, like the idea of having these things that are tailored to you and things that you are interested in, that is valuable information, I think, because you're not wasting time putting ads out there that, you know, people don't want to see, but also you're increasing your chances of a conversion, because someone's walking into that store, there's a kid who wants a chocolate milkshake. Yeah. Why are you showing him a coffee? But you're not now. Like now you're like, I know this is a kid. I know these kids might not like coffee. Therefore, I'm going to show them a chocolate milkshake on the menu.
Or with half decent parents thinking, you know, the 4-year-old's probably not having like a double shot espresso. And
exactly. I mean, when I was a kid, I was drinking coffee probably.
Well, it is really interesting, because we're talking about what is good to understand about this is typically these solutions aren't always 100% driven by the digital signage as the first driver. It's about intelligence. Yeah. And then your digital signage is kind of strapped onto the side of that experience, where you go, okay, I've got 12 cameras around my store. It tells me where my potential customers are, what they're looking at, what they're investigating, what the general flow around the shop is. Is there a place where people are stopping for an extended period of time? What is that? Is there something that we need to upsell there? Is this an opportunity to put a digital screen there? And then, as you say, like, it's the screen then becomes intelligent in terms of who's in front of it, what does it need to deliver? And then, as we kind of mentioned, where AI reports back all of that information and says, okay, well, based on these 25 stores averages, we can see that we need to improve content in this metric, or this store had more green content and that worked better. Just all of these things that it can test. And it would be really fascinating to see, you know, as brick and mortar stores continue in 20 years' time, what does that look like? Yeah. I don't think we can even perceive today what that... It might just be you walk into a white room and everything is just projected into you. Yeah. And you just see like, okay, I'm going to it knows who I am. I know who it is. Just a totally tailored experience.
Yeah, that's really cool. It reminds me of the fact that in Harry Potter, for example, which I've been rewatching this week, which is why I'm bringing this up, but there are certain creatures that only some people can see.
Right.
And it's kind of like they walk.
And there it is.
Yeah, it's the
They're
same.
just ahead of the game. They're just great in technology.
I think Harry Potter is predicting the future.
Yeah.
AI is just based on Harry Potter.
I just think, because you were talking about notifications, I'm the kind of person that never turns anything off. So I'll sit, like, my Slack message, I'll be sitting there watching Arcane, the thing I'm watching, and I'll just be like, swipe away, because I'll just see that there's notifications. Because I have a I can't turn off mentality where it just has to. I couldn't turn off my work profile even after a week's worth, because I just want to see it, because I like to have all of that knowledge and visibility.
Yeah.
But there's also the other side of it, and understanding those two personas and saying this person wants, like, if I know Joe wants one concise message to focus in on and really ingest. And then if I know Tim, just bombard him.
Give him everything.
Just bombard him. Just make sure it is everywhere. Do not stop sending those messages. And it would be interesting to see if, as AI gets to know people, because bearing in mind, I just paid $18.99 so we can have this show with ChatGPT.
Yep.
It's now tracing all of my conversations, and it's building this database of me.
Yeah.
What does that look like in 4 years' time? Is that a product to sell an individual's data? I don't know the answer to that. I'm just spitballing.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a little bit more time. Let's ask one more question. I'll ask the last question. Actually, you take the last question there. That last one.
Very bottom one?
How can businesses?
Oh, yeah. So, are we good?
No.
So, GPT. How can businesses ensure that their digital signage hardware and software choices are future-proof and adaptable to emerging technologies?
To future-proof their digital signage hardware and software, businesses should choose scalable and flexible solutions that can easily integrate with new technologies. Opting for open standards and interoperable systems can help ensure compatibility with future innovations. Regular software updates and investing in hardware that can be upgraded or expanded can also keep systems adaptable to emerging trends.
All right. I don't disagree with any of that.
No.
I think that's pretty concise, to be honest with you. I'm just rereading this as we go through. So making sure software's up to date, interoperability, which is really interesting and not something that always comes up as well. Any thoughts from you? Any additions?
I feel like the adaptability is a really good thing, because, I mean, it depends in what form AI comes in, because AI is obviously primarily software driven. So to have a CMS or a piece of software that can function with software and it's not beholden to the hardware, it almost by default you're getting that flexibility, I suppose.
Yeah.
But then you get deeper into APIs and stuff like that. Flexibility is the big thing here, and adaptability. I think that to be able to move with what is inevitably going to come, you need to be able to, or have the, you haven't got the locks on the doors. You've got the doors unlocked, but they're maybe not open yet.
I agree, and I think that there's two very distinctive levels when we talk about APIs. And for those who are kind of watching this and going, I don't know what API is, you don't need to. It's more the understanding that any product today that is closed in their APIs, basically, if you open up a software business, and you find that their API documentation is a mess, or the APIs are old or outdated, or they were kind of plumbed together, that's a big concern for the future of that technology, because as things progress, as things become more interoperable and connected with other platforms, you need your documentation and your platform to be as strict and as easy to read as possible. Otherwise, you'll miss out on things like Zapier integrations, things like integrating with partners and making everything all universal. And I think that's the way we're going with software. Is when I buy a software, I'm expecting it's going to work well with a lot of other softwares. We bought, Canva and integration with its AI tools, and you look at Salesforce as a sales tool and what it can connect to, and Intercom and Apollo and all these different SaaS models. They wouldn't be able to do the integration that they could do if their documentation weren't in very good order. Yeah. And I think you'll find that a lot of the softwares today that don't have the best design documents are really going to be hamstrung with that connection later.
Yeah. Well, going back to the door analogy, the locks are on the doors, right? Because
because if you open the door, it's an absolute mess and they haven't tidied.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, you're going to get trumbled with all different kinds of stuff stored. But
it's that door in that closet that you open that you never open, and you just throw stuff in and close the door again.
Yeah, that's it. But I think like going back to the API discussion, like having the ability to take and it links to what we were saying earlier about, I'm walking through a shopping mall and I don't want to see shoe adverts. I don't want the notifications, but I do know what I do want. And I think that if you think about that in the case of like a CMS or a digital signage platform, it's like I don't want the CMS. I want the functionality. Give me that. I will take that.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm going to go and take this. I'm going to pair it with AI in my own way and build my own solution. And that's the best form of adaptability, isn't it?
And that's where new businesses come from. They build onto other platforms to say, I love this product, but it needs to do this thing that it isn't right now. And I'll build this myself and sell that as a solution. Okay, well, I think that covers kind of the questions. A couple of things just to note just before we wrap up here. If you do want to follow us along, you can go find us at Signage Live on LinkedIn. You can also visit signagelive.com. Joe, where can they find you?
You can find me on Signage Live Explored. So again, we're on LinkedIn, and to be honest, all of our YouTube stuff, it's all there. But if you go onto the Learn and Explore hub over on our website as well, you can find tons of content from both Tim and myself from this show and from my show as well.
Absolutely. And me and Joe are going to be at ISE. So if you're coming to ISE this year, do hop by the Signage Live stand in Hall 4, I believe it is this year. Don't know the booth number off the top of my head, but we've got a lot of stuff planned there where we'll be talking about some of these things and doing some interviews and things like that. And finally, trying to think if there's anything else to mention. You can come and see us again next Friday, 3 p.m. Happy Thanksgiving for those that are celebrating or just celebrated. I'm going to get ChatGPT to sign us off here, but just as an FYI, I'm mentioning this now right at the end of the call, but this is going at the end of this week. This has just been a Movember thing, so this is the last time the Tash comes out. Well, maybe. Hey, ChatGPT, thanks very much for coming on to Digital Signage Explored, the show. Would you mind signing off and saying goodbye to the audience for me?
Thank you so much for having me on Digital Signage Explored. It's been a pleasure chatting with you all. Goodbye, everyone. Take care and keep exploring the world of digital signage.
Oh, still that.
Beautiful. Love that.
Thanks, everybody, for joining, and we'll speak to you on the next one.
See you on the next one.